Welcome back. Breaking developments coming in. Prime Minister Modi has now put out a statement, and it's an emotive one and an important one, on a history-changing matter that is coming up before the country. He says, and I'm quoting, on the 16th of April, Parliament will be convened to discuss and pass an important bill that advances women's reservation. To describe this merely as a legislative exercise would be an understatement. It is a reflection of the aspiration of crores of women across India. It is an affirmation of the principle that has long guided our civilizational ethos, that society progresses when women progress. Women constitute nearly half of India's population. Their contributions to our nation are vast and invaluable. Today, India is witnessing remarkable achievements by women across every field, from science and technology to entrepreneurship, from sports to the armed forces, and from music to the arts. Women are at the forefront of India's progress. Over the years, sustained efforts have been made to create an enabling environment for women's empowerment. Greater access to education, improved healthcare, enhanced financial inclusion, and better access to basic amenities have strengthened the foundation of women's participation in economic and social life. Yet, their representation in the world of politics and legislative bodies has not always been commensurate with their role in society. This is particularly unfortunate because when women participate in administration and decision making, they bring with them the experiences and insights and enrich public discourse and improve the quality of governance. This opportunity to ensure women's reservation also resonates deeply with the spirit of our Constitution. This moment calls for collective action. It is not about any one government, party or individual. It is about the nation as a whole recognizing the importance of this step and coming together for Nari Shakti. That is why the passage of a bill for women's reservation should reflect the broadest possible consensus and be guided by the larger national interest. Unquote. That is the Prime Minister of this country who is making an appeal just days before the women's reservation bill reaches its final impact value in Parliament before it gets enacted next year in 2027. He is basically calling for a unanimous vote. That's what's happening here. Let me pick up that conversation. Joyita Basu, before we discuss the elections that are happening in Assam, Kerala and Puducherry, let's pick up this thought, because this is going to change the political roadmap of India forever. 33% reservation for women in Parliament. Potentially this paves the way for the same to be enacted in all the state assemblies. The Prime Minister wants it to be, it seems pretty indicative from this statement, he would like to see a unanimous vote, 10%, everybody in favor.
Yes, absolutely. And why not? When you're talking about the opposition parties, I don't see there is any, I don't think that they will be having any reservation about this particular bill which reserves seats for women. Although as a woman, I must say, Rishabh, that, I wish I wish this particular women's representation in Parliament had come without reservation, but that has not been the case. That would have been the ideal scenario where women get to participate in, be in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha on their, without any this kind of a push. But the very fact that this was needed and that it took so many years, decades, I would say this is a watershed moment in the country's history, and for women's movement and for women of this country, including, I would say, even globally. Because, given that India is the largest democracy, most the populous democracy, what India does, it has an impact.
This fundamentally changes politics. I know there are elections. Elections happen in this country every 6 months, okay? And will happen in this country every 6 months. Somewhere or the other, an election is going on. Unless we can have the concept of one nation, one poll, in which case elections will happen every 2.5 years or every 5 years. You can, of course, argue that as we have the pros and cons of that. But Tanvi, 16th of April, it is watershed. And can we accept that you will have that one moment in which the Congress and the BJP will vote together on this?
100%, and looking forward to it. I've been one of the advocate for this for a very, very long period of time. Rishabh, you see, there are 19 state legislatures in India which have less than 10% women members. States like Mizoram and Himachal Pradesh have zero representation of women. Now, these statistics are extremely alarming, and something has to be done. This represents the women coming forward is a watershed moment in the sense that they don't just get to take part in decision making, in not just being a symbolic part of decision making, but actually making laws that affect women. Because there are so many times we have seen in parliament that we have to amend laws because because the lawmakers haven't really thought much how it will affect women in general, and that has really impacted the growth story of women in India. And as Joitma ji said very rightly, that this is not just an Indian problem; it's a global problem. We still have had one woman prime minister. United States is yet to have a woman prime minister. So I think India will lead by example for the rest of the world if this happens.
Okay, well, for sure. You mentioned we've had a woman prime minister. We've had women presidents. We are yet to have a woman chief justice, a woman army chief. But then this Rajalakshmi Joshi, let me get to the political point first. In practice, the statement from the Prime Minister is not making a case for it because the case for it has already been well established. The fact that it could not be done for 30 years is the strange stigma of politics in this country, that nobody bothered to do it because of political expediency. But in practice, are we going to see the Congress and BJP vote together as one?
Hello, Rishabh, and I hope that this will be one of those rare moments where all political parties, not just the BJP and the Congress, all of them come together and they vote in favor of this bill. And I see that happening more because, nowadays the women factor has become a very important aspect in electoral politics. So that also could be a reason where they may not want to alienate this women voter base. So that is the reason also why political parties may want to not look on the other side of the fence. So then that could be ironically a reason why they could actually vote in favor of this. But seriously speaking, yes, it is very much the need of the day, and I really hope that they put all their political differences aside,
Okay.
and bring all the stakeholders.
Okay, the time passes by. So for people watching the broadcast, let me put a little bit of context before we go back to election coverage. So the context is that 3 years ago, in 2023, the concept of 33% reservation of women as law has already been passed. Okay, so that was the milestone of 2023. That 33% reservation in Parliament as a principle has already been cleared. Now, in order to put that into practice, you need to make other changes, and this bill, which is coming up for vote on the 16th of April, will implement the principle for the 2029 general elections, which is not a long way off. We're just 3 years away. Okay. So, in 3 years, it is now guaranteed that 1/3 of parliamentarians will be women, which automatically, Joyita Basu, means that in the past, where too often we've seen that, at the local level, panchayati level, where sarpanches are supposed to be women and all that, we've just simply seen family members, wives, sisters, daughters put forth. Are we going to see something substantively different? That this is actually going to create a crop of a whole new generation of women parliamentarians, women politicians?
Well, Rishabh, there is no escaping the family factor. Okay, there is going to be. But given the extent, 33%, even those politicians who are totally into, we are talking about nepotism, these politicians will also have to introduce women in the, they will have to field women who go beyond the family. How many leaders, how many politicians will have enough women in their families so that they can field and fill up all the seats? It's not going to be. And it is too much of an eyesore if that happens. So it is bound to, yes, what we are going to witness is a new crop of women leaders coming up, and that is very good. Good for the discussion, the narrative, the discourse, the political discourse in the country. It's very good for that.
Okay. So I have to address one more subject before I go back to election coverage, because it's an important one. And let me, Joyita, start with you and go across everyone. Should we increase the number of parliamentary seats, constituencies in India by 33%? Joyita, should we do it? Has the time come?
Yes, we have to. I think the new Lok Sabha, they have already made provisions for increase. And I think after delimitation, whatever the process, constitutional process is, yes, because you see what happens, even in terms of administering these constituencies, even after for the MPs and all, think of some of the constituencies are so huge. 7 assembly seats, 8 assembly seats, and
Okay.
they're really,
So
really
Joyita
huge.
says yes, we should. Okay, Raja Lakshmi Joshi, same thought. Is this then an opportunity to also look at something we haven't changed since 1950, the number of seats in India's parliament?
Yes, Rishabh, that is exactly the reason why this is going to be a historic session, because the BJP intends to not only make amendments to make sure that this bill is implemented and made a law. So it was not enough to just merely pass the women reservation bill. So it is also necessary to make sure that there is this delimitation happening, which was held up because of the census. So now there will be an amendment in that law to make sure that the delimitation will happen on the basis of the 2011 census. So because otherwise the census could take forever and the entire thing will be held up in a whole limbo. So
Okay.
that is the reason why this, I think, is very essential. And the government is making sure that this will definitely see the light of day, not say maybe in some time in the future, but in the
Okay.
upcoming election itself.
Okay, so the constitutional amendment, as I mentioned, was passed in 2023, the 106th amendment, and this bill will now operationalize it for the 2029 general elections. This bill is mandating 33% reservation for women. Now, the larger conversation, and Venkat Ryan can come in on this, sir, is this an opportunity? Because, there's no debate left on women's reservation. The only question we can ask is, why did we wait so long? But is this an opportunity thereby to also now seriously consider, before 2029 itself, which means within the next 3 years, to expand the number of parliamentary constituencies in India for the first time in our independent history?
Rishabh, there are going to be 820 Lok Sabha seats, and out of which one-third will be allotted to women. This has already been decided, and yesterday the cabinet held a meeting in which the 33% reservation for women in our assemblies also is going to be discussed when Parliament meets for the special session next week. So, I think it's about time that India did this, because there are at least 30 parliaments across the globe where women have one-third representation. In Indian assemblies, it's very sad that out of 4,200 MLAs, barely 400 are women. That is less than 10%. And India being the world's largest democracy, it's about time that we give our women due representation. And I do not see any party opposing this noble, legislation, in my opinion. Rishabh?
Okay, but that's the conundrum, and that's the conundrum right there, Mr. Venkat Narayan, because all parties are in principle supporting the 33% reservation for women, but the Congress is opposing the increase in parliamentary constituencies to 816. So then, is that the pretext for them to vote down this bill or attempt to vote it down, even though they might not succeed?
Rishabh, every second voter is a woman in our country, everywhere else in the world. I do not think that any sensible Congress leaders will do anything that will irritate or antagonize the 50% of the Indian electorate, for God's sake.
Okay.
I think common sense should demand that Congress comes on board and get on with it.
Okay, all right. Tanvi, And I put the conundrum to you as well, because 33% women's reservation also comes then with the increase of parliamentary seats to 816. Now, there is the Congress party that says we favor one but we oppose the other. Where do you see this going?
Look, from the perspective of administration, this is going to be a big challenge for the ruling government as to manage the budgets of the new parliament if there is demilitation that's happening. To accommodate so many members, they have to make all the arrangements. So these are some of the questions that the government needs to answer on the floor of the House. And these are relevant questions. This has nothing to do with the women reservation in particular. This is about how the parliament has to be run from after this happens, after the delimitation happens. So these questions the government needs to address for the opposition members. But I think it's a journey that India will have to take, whether now or whenever it has to, because it has to happen. So the problems will come, the challenges will be there. The onus is on the government to take the opposition on board. If you remember, it was last, I think, the all the decisions that the government and the opposition took together were during Mr. Jaitley's time. And post that, there hasn't been much consensus when it comes to passing all the laws together. So we have to see that who will become that Arun Jaitley for BJP now to make this happen.
Okay.